When did you last fill up your gas tank? Did you think about Congress while you were standing there? Probably not. But here's the thing. You should have. Because that number on the pump, right now, is not just economics. It is the direct consequence of a war started without your vote, without a plan, and without an exit strategy. Let me give you one number before we go any further. A gallon of regular unleaded gas cost $2.98 the day before this war started. Today it costs $4.14. That is nearly a 40% increase in just weeks. And the people in Washington who started this war are now privately panicking about it. The headline you saw on the news was probably something like GOP senators urge Trump to find Iran exit plan. The anchors read it, moved on, and went to the weather. But that headline is not just political drama, it is a warning signal. And today, we are going to go 3 layers deep into what it actually means for global markets, for your grocery bill, and for the future of American politics. This is not the story the mainstream media is telling you. This is the math they are not doing on air. Layer 1. The military and technical reality. Why the old playbook is broken. The United States and Israel launched strikes against Iran on February 28th of this year. The war is now in its 7th week. And here is what nobody on cable news is saying clearly enough. There is no exit strategy. Not a vague one, not a secret one. There is none. Trump is not helping Republican anxiety by his failure to explain his war aims in Iran. House Armed Services Chairman Mike Rogers described frustration on both sides of the aisle following recent briefings from top officials. Members lack adequate information about plans for ground troops, the end goal, or the expected price tag of the war. Think about that. The people who are supposed to fund this war do not know what it costs, how long it lasts, or what winning even looks like. And here is the physical reality that no amount of diplomacy can change. The Iranians have figured out that control of the Strait of Hormuz is their most effective weapon against the US and Israel's bombing of Tehran, according to Ed Yardeni of Yardeni Research. The Strait of Hormuz. Remember that name. It is the single narrowest choke point through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply flows every single day, and right now it is effectively a weapon. Iran does not need missiles to win this war economically. They just need to keep that strait disrupted long enough. President Trump is officially on the clock among Senate Republicans to wind down his military campaign against Iran, even as he has launched a new naval blockade of Iran and is considering launching more military strikes unless a peace deal is reached. That is not a strategy. That is a contradiction. You are trying to end a war while escalating it at the same time. History has a name for this. It is called mission creep, and we have seen it before in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. Every time the people in charge said it would be over soon. Every time, it was not. Layer 2. The money. Who is paying, who is profiting, and what this war actually costs. U.S. crude oil has jumped past $90 per barrel, up from $67 the day before the Iran war broke out. That is a 34% spike in the price of the commodity that powers the entire global economy. Every truck that moves your groceries, every plane that carries your packages, every factory that makes your products, all of them run on oil. Now let us talk about the actual price tag of this war. The Pentagon is requesting over $200 billion from the White House to fund operations. Senator Chuck Schumer called that request monstrous. And remember, this comes on top of an already record-breaking defense budget exceeding $800 billion annually. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, a centrist and top GOP spending leader, said she will not fund more money for the war until the White House outlines its plan to Congress. The people in Alaska are asking me, how long is this going on? Are there going to be boots on the ground? How much is this going to cost? Murkowski said. The answer to most of this is, I don't know. A top Republican senator, a senior member of her own party, and her answer to the basic questions about this war is, I don't know. Now here's the part that connects directly to your wallet. Rising oil prices are suppressing economic growth and fueling inflation, which will force central banks to raise interest rates the world over, according to Morgan Stanley Wealth Management Chief Investment Officer Lisa Shallett. The oil shock could destroy demand and dent global growth, with potential stagflation implications, she warned clients. Stagflation. That word should make you stop. Stagflation is when inflation is high and the economy is stagnant at the same time. It is the worst possible economic combination because central banks cannot fight both problems simultaneously. If they raise rates to kill inflation, they crush growth. If they cut rates to boost the economy, inflation explodes. There is no clean move. Before the war, Morgan Stanley expected major central banks to collectively cut around 150 basis points from their base rates. Now the bank expects nearly 125 basis points of hikes instead. That is a complete reversal. Rate cuts you were expecting, gone. Rate hikes you did not plan for, coming. Your mortgage, your car loan, your business credit line, all of them just got more expensive because of a war in the Persian Gulf. Layer 3. The butterfly effect. How this hits every human being on the planet. Let us be very clear about something. This is not a story about the Middle East. This is not geopolitics happening somewhere far away. This is a chain reaction that ends at your kitchen table. As a result of the war with Iran, gasoline prices have skyrocketed for U.S. consumers. A gallon of regular unleaded gas, which cost $2.98 on the eve of the war, now costs $4.14, according to AAA. That nearly 40% rise is squeezing consumers 7 months before key midterm elections. But gas is just the beginning. Think about what runs on diesel fuel. Every truck that delivers your food. Every piece of farm equipment that harvests your crops. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said the impact on gas and fertilizer prices is a big deal, back in his home state of South Dakota. We're in planting season, so if you didn't buy fertilizer ahead of time, you're really feeling it. And obviously fuel is a critically important part of production in agriculture, Thune said. Fertilizer prices rising means food production costs rising. Food production costs rising means grocery prices rising. That is the chain, and it is already happening. Senator Martin Heinrich, the top Democrat on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, warned, "Because there was no plan going in, I think there will be lots of things that are unforeseen consequences of this. You saw how much gas has gone up in a day. Oil futures have gone up. There are going to be a lot of knock-on effects." And now the political dimension, because this is where things get really interesting. Ed Yardeni of Yardeni Research put it bluntly to his clients. The Iranians must figure that if they can keep oil prices elevated through the U.S. midterm elections, the Republicans will lose at least the House, if not the Senate as well. They must hope that the Democrats might cut off funding for the war. Read that again. Iran's strategy is not purely military. It is economic and political. Keep the oil prices high long enough, and the American political system does the work for them. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is basic strategic logic. And it is working. Democrats have flipped 30 seats in state legislatures in special and regularly scheduled elections over the last year. No wonder 35 House GOP members are retiring or seeking higher office this year, the most since at least 1930. The Republicans who started this war without a plan are now watching their own political future erode in real time, and they know it. The conflict has stretched into a 7th week, and a 2-week ceasefire recently neared expiration. The trigger point is the deadline for Trump to seek congressional approval for a conflict that lasts beyond 60 days. As Senator Tom Tillis told reporters, the 60-day target is what I'm looking at. That deadline is less than 3 weeks away. And yet, even with all of this pressure, Senate Republicans voted down for the 4th time an attempt by Democrats to force an end to the Iran war. The 52-47 vote was the first since Congress returned from recess. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky was the lone Republican to side with Democrats. So here is what we actually have: a war with no declared end goal, a $200 billion funding request with no explanation of how it will be spent, gas prices up 40%, food prices rising, mortgage rates going up instead of down, the Iranians using economic pressure as a military weapon, Republican senators publicly panicking, and a 60-day legal deadline approaching that nobody in Washington seems to have a clean answer for. The television news version of this story is, senators are frustrated, the clock is ticking, negotiations are happening. That is the surface. The real story is this: there is a mathematical chain connecting a decision made in Washington to the price of bread in your city. And that chain is tightening every single week this war continues without a strategy. American voters won't tolerate high gasoline prices for long. History proves that. The question is, how long is long enough? So here's what I want to leave you with. Not a clean conclusion, a real question. If the people who started this war could not answer basic questions about its cost, its duration, or its end goal before it started, and they still cannot answer them 7 weeks in, then who exactly is in charge of the decision that is currently changing the price of everything you buy? Is it the president, who launched the war without congressional approval and without a public strategy? Is it the Congress, which has now voted 4 times to keep funding a war it claims to be frustrated with? Or is it the market, the oil traders, the defense contractors, and the foreign governments who are all now making calculated bets on how long American political will can hold? Drop your answer in the comments, because this is not a question with an obvious answer. And the answer matters, not just for midterm elections, but for what your energy bill looks like this winter and what your grocery receipt looks like this fall. If this video gave you something that the nightly news did not, hit subscribe. The next breakdown is on what happens to the global economy if the Strait of Hormuz remains disrupted past the summer. The numbers are not pretty.